Okay.
The oil
Yeah, we're gonna get it set
Because I wanted to. I know.
up. Oh, we're just gonna.
Yeah. I was like, are you really
Yeah, I like that.
That was nice. Yeah, I wish I could have rebutted that a little better.
You can't. You can.
Yes, you can.
No, you cannot.
You can.
You can't defeat a metaphor.
It's an oil tree, man.
We're gonna be planting trees.
Of oil. I can't wait. I want some open debate.
It's the cycle of life. And they come back as trees. Really, you guys are, you have no concept of the bigger picture of the bigger picture on the earth. And I didn't have plastic.
Yeah, you're gonna have to help with that. I couldn't remember.
It's AV on or something.
Yeah, you'll help with that when we get up. We should get that.
So who's going?
Group A is going next.
Group A.
We're actually not.
Or wise use.
There's members of the community here. I don't know what your guys' terms are. I'm completely unfamiliar with what this is. I mean, well, you can wander around with all your labels and terms, but that's really not the correct environment to really have a conversation, okay?
In legal
Oh,
environment.
not yet. Yeah, we're like second to last to go. We just figured there was break.
You see this button that says on?
Okay, great.
Well, did you hit mute or on or off?
I just hit off. Does it
Well,
turn
it takes
all
a
the way
while
off?
to warm back up again. So just
You should hit mute. Yeah.
just turn it back on, and I'll walk over there and hit mute when it's warmed up.
I was trying to help.
All right, so we're going to go to Jessica. Are we next?
Yes.
Okay, so we now have a group of consultants who have been hired by,
No. Up next, we'd like to discuss, we have some members of the community that would like to see that what their stakes are in this situation.
okay. All right, very good.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Governor Inslee, I would urge you that the oil terminal should be approved on the basis of the community of the people, and we can't so much be concerned about the species when the community can be affected more so. Approving it would be the Port of Vancouver economic region for Southwest Washington would improve the quality jobs, international trade connections, and state and local revenue, and marine and industrial development. And the cost of electricity will also go down. Right now it's currently going up due to the increase in demands, which the oil transportation would fix. And this increased dependency on thermal generation was crippled industrial growth and forced the government to contract emergency power ships to make up for the supply, the shortfall. And this approval of the TSOT would restore a fiscal balance and fix the power crisis. And is it expensive? Yes. And I would think that it is worth looking into, because the utilities constitute basic expenditure for households, and the fact that these increases are coming in December, then there's already pressure on spending. And we expect to see some additional inflation pressure. From the oil shipments, we can design a cheaper hydropower system at cheaper systems American households can use, and a cheaper way we can transport these symptoms through, or these things, and benefits for the Port of Vancouver and sustainable revenue. And it would be environmentally sound because it'd be cost effective for the human communities. And we can't be so concerned about what if or what may happen or or accidents with oil, because that's what we have our professionals for, to make sure that that doesn't happen. And so this would be safe and environmentally sound, using our experts and also Vancouver Energy specialists to make sure that this would be safe and sound for the people of America. And I turn this to somebody else in the community who would like to speak now.
Thank you. First, putting my point, I just want to ask every one of you, how do you describe a better life? Can anyone of you answer that question? What do you need to have a good life?
Opening your mind.
And what else?
Nature.
Food, shelter.
Okay. How I would put my point is, I'm a single mother with 4 kids. I'm playing that role. And I have been unemployed from past 6 months. For me, having a better life means having a stable job and a shelter to live. We all just need to improve our community and be employed, which will provide us with some finance to live in our life. Am I right, everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
As I told, I'm a single mother and I have a home loan to pay. So many bills which is still pending, which I haven't paid from past 6 months because I have been unemployed and I have no money which I saved in like before. I have like no funds, nothing. This project, what we have been talking about, our group have been talking about, would bring thousands of jobs. Obviously, that 1,000 is a big number. If most of you believe that having this project, to disapprove this project, think about our family, think about every one of us. Would any one of you provide us with any monthly wage? People who are unemployed, would any one of you would do that? No. Basically, no one would do that. People think about themselves. But this project would actually bring so many hopes, happiness for people like us, who are people like me, who's unemployed. Please think about people and our community. I haven't bought any new clothes or haven't paid any electricity bill. I should, because that's what I have been doing. I have been looking for a job, I couldn't find it, and this project brings a hope in my family and within the community to get a job. Now I would pass it to one of them, to put their point ahead.
I'm another community member, and I don't live close to the area of where the terminal is going to be, but this is going to benefit my family and making things cheaper for us. And the point of it all is just to help out other humans to service and help out my kids and my family. Basically, with all the facts put into it, still, the point of it all is to help humans, to help us advance and help us with everything. Everything belongs to us and everything's for us because of how we are, the way we create things, and we can help other environments out by just helping ourselves out because we are like the main source of everything. Everything is for us. I'm just going to pass it to another consultant at this point.
As a member of the community, I actually live next to the Columbia River, and the Columbia River is mainly for the use of fishing salmons for the local community, but usually the way of people purchasing salmons getting salmons is usually purchased from supermarkets rather than going fishing to save time. So with the build of the terminal, we would actually enhance the quality of life in the people of Vancouver. This, other than providing jobs, it would save us gas fuels. So you guys complaining about the gas prices going up, well, it'll be going down. So even though this is, you guys might think this is a temporary problem of creating more carbon dioxide in the future, since we're just the first generation, think about our next generation, they will probably solve that problem, either building new stuff of science, or we might even not be living on Earth. So why save a couple of species than rather to for us? Because if let's say the land was ruled by bears, they would probably kill us off for them to live than us.
Well said.
Think about that.
And up next, I think we'd like to turn it over to our researchers and that have done the due diligence and all the steps that we've taken so far. And they've put together the initial draft of the environmental impact study. So I'll turn it over to you guys.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can top bears killing us all. I'm not somebody who's going to like mince words really. I like to look at the reality of the situation, and the reality is that fossil fuels aren't going anywhere. We are going to be using them for the foreseeable future, and the best way to use them is the most efficient way possible with the least amount of environmental impact. Climate change is real. I mean, no one's going to say it isn't, and fossil fuels are the reason for that, but we can't just immediately transfer over to something else. There isn't any other option at this point that will provide us with the type of electricity production that we need in a sustainable manner. So we should really be focusing on trying to find the best ways of using the resources that we have available to us. The oil terminal in Vancouver is our best bet in this case because this stuff is going to be transported one way or another. It's going to go by train, by boat, by truck, and it's just going to be done that way, whether we like it or not, really. So what we need to do is look at our alternatives and decide which ones are the best. We have looked at a number of alternative locations and a number of alternative methods of transportation, and Vancouver terminal is the best out of these. There's been we've looked at sites in Port Angeles, Longview, Bellingham, Kalama, a number of other sites as well. Each of these would require more construction, larger acreages. They would require different transportation methods that would be more impactful on the environment. And in the case of Kalama specifically, we would have to actually infill wetland. And so there would be additional environmental impact with that. By using this terminal here, we can control the, we can use our local regulations to control how we produce and store the oil. This is going to be safer than in a lot of other countries that are oil-producing countries that we currently import from, and so we can manage and mitigate any possible mishaps or situations. So this oil is going to come from somewhere. It's either going to come from North America or it's going to come from overseas. It's shipped overseas. It's going to be shipped on, ships. And I'm sure everybody remembers the Valdez and the massive oil spill there. And we can control this in the Vancouver area. We have a plan that's set up for mitigation, cleanup. There's going to be equipment and trained professionals on standby at all times, and equipment will be staged in the very unlikely event that there is a spill. It will be cleaned up immediately. So in conclusion, basically, we don't have much of an option in the reality of the situation. Fossil fuels are going to be used for the foreseeable future for several decades while we transfer over to cleaner fuels. But in the meantime, we're all driving cars. There's not really getting around that right now.
And I would just like to add, that he did a great job of explaining the fact that those fuels will be used, and we have the opportunity here to actually manage the transport processes. And we believe that we have a very comprehensive and safe way to maintain those transport processes and react very dramatically and very effectively to mitigate spills and explosions. We've also been running the Port of Portland, for like over 100 years. And we've been able to maintain a certain level of ecological diversity on Hayden Island the entire time. We still have over 800 acres, and they provide habitat for a number of birds, owls, eagles, deer, coyote, and the region has done a very effective job in maintaining a balance between our relationship, between human needs, the needs of our communities, and wildlife. I mean, that's what the Northwest is known for, and we believe in using the Tesoro facilities. We're in the best position to manage this properly. But regardless, I mean, if you're eating, genetic or non-GMO foods, that's still being transferred by truck. Actually, if we do get this put through and we stop relying on oil tanker trucks, this will allow us to remove the equivalent of 250 cars from the road. This is according to the Washington Department of Ecology and the California Air Resource Board. So we'd be looking at definitively removing 1.5 million tons of carbon emissions. I mean, you guys did bring up the figure of 50 million metric tons that we brought up just in general. I mean, that's just going to happen. I mean, that's going to go somewhere. There's not much we can do about that. There are a lot of, the public has demands, and we have to meet them somehow for the functioning of our society. I mean, it's great to advocate for these things, but you're creating a problematic situation. It could create instability in other technologies that we don't even know about.
Okay, well, those are all very convincing arguments, I must say.
Oh my gosh.
So where are we now? We're still way ahead of schedule, aren't we?
Who is it?
Yeah.
That's good. We'll have plenty of time for
So-
questions and answers.
Up next, we have the social ecologists out of our Group B conservationist group.
So I'd like to go ahead and start off on a few facts for you guys. Between 2010 and 2015, there were roughly 42 spills and 33,000 tons of oil lost. 40% of those were due to collisions. It may seem like a good idea to bring this oil terminal in, but the downfalls are major for the community and the local region and the United States as a whole. The Columbia Gorge is a main source for drinking water in the area. This puts that area at risk. They mentioned that there will be 1,000 jobs brought in, but studies show that there is health problems that are brought when working in the crude oil terminals. Some of the side effects are rapid heart rate, headaches, confusion, burning of the skin, eyes, irritated skin and eyes, respiratory system problems, and skin rashes. Another thing, the trains that are transporting these crude oil are going to operate on diesel engines. These engines will emit gallons of greenhouse emissions daily. There's roughly 12 trains being transported oil now, and they're planning to triple that amount. Those in the community that do lack resources, the oil spills will disrupt them more, disrupt them of even more resources. Multiple areas of these trains that go through small and large cities. That puts hundreds of people at risk. I mean, if train comes down and blows up in the middle of the city, thousands of lives lost right there. So, yeah.
We'd also like to note that along with all that, today's social, political, and ecological trends are leading communities and our country as a whole in the wrong direction. The human community as a whole is going to have to change the way we think about the environment if we want to do something about it. To change the way we think, we need to start thinking about the human community as a part of the natural world. It should not be considered singular things. The natural world can be viewed as just another part of the community, then our relationship with nature will improve as a part of that. The idea of an oil terminal being built along the Columbia River is only going to keep us farther away from achieving the goal of a global human community. This oil terminal could have a significant negative effect on the environment around it and the people who use the environment. Native American people have lived in the Columbia Gorge for thousands of years. To this day, they still rely on fishing partly in the Columbia Gorge as a source of income and for traditional purposes. The Columbia Fishing Treaty was signed and implemented to help the populations of fish grow and to keep local communities stable. Even now, populations of salmon and steelhead have been on the decline due to the many dams that have been built throughout the Columbia River. If an oil spill were to occur, it would have a catastrophic effect on the populations of fish in the area, not to mention the populations of people. Derailments of trains and/or an oil spill, noise pollution, air pollution, all could have long-lasting effects on the environment and community, which would in turn affect not just the Native American communities, but the local communities and people visiting the area. The environment should not be viewed as a source to reap all benefits from. It should be viewed as a communal resource that should not be taken advantage of. This oil terminal would take much more than it would give back to the global community. If this project comes to fruition, then we would be taking a step back in the wrong direction to where we need to go in the future. We're passing it on to the members.
Group B concerns. Thank you for hearing us today, Governor Inslee. I hear you guys' points. There are some short-term economic benefits that definitely arise when looking at the institution of a new terminal. However, I would argue that the long-term ecological stability of the gorge is put at risk when we transport fuels through it, and also there's an increased risk of damage by accident or the failure for the, I hear you have policies that are environmentally friendly, but failure to institute and educate your employees on those can lead to problems as well. If this proposal were passed, it would be an excuse to continue to exploit wildlife in the gorge. When we need bigger trains, will we make another or will we clear out more habitat to accommodate that? When we need to put more trains through there, will we build another track and continue to limit our ability or limit the environment's ability to sustain itself naturally? Communities of these species are already being encroached upon by man. This terminal is a continuation of that. It is buying into the economic mindset that one of our executives already said was unsustainable, and I agree with that. These short-term economic mindsets are, in part what caused the salmon population to decrease in the first place. As we mentioned as well, there are many salmon species, specifically to the gorge. There's Chinook, bull trout, chum, coho, and 3 different types of sockeye that are all endangered. The upper Columbia Chinook is actually, or they're all listed as threatened. The upper Columbia Chinook, however, are listed as endangered. There are many species that are at risk. The composition of the habitat, it depends on those fish, and we know now that with the current makeup of the gorge, things are able to operate smoothly and the environment is able to sustain itself. However, we have no idea, at least I do not believe that man has come to an understanding of our environment enough that we can make decisions so vast without fully understanding what the consequences of our actions will be. Another point that I would like to make is that the pristine natural environment of the gorge is one of the most beautiful and geologically and ecologically diverse places, not only in the Northwest or maybe even the country, but the world. It's one of the most pristine nature, not a reserve, but sites that I've ever been to myself. Without having and appropriate mindset towards these things, we may lose a lot of knowledge that we could have gained. Holmes Rolston gives a good metaphor. The extinction of a species is like ripping the pages out of a book. There's so much that we can learn, there's so much insight to be gained from the animals and organisms that live within the gorge that we could lose. We could throw away the book without even opening the first page on some of these animals. In today's society, I mean, individuals are guided by a community's moral compass. And in today's society, that compass is guided economically. I would say that my group agrees that we need to start to think ecologically and not practice what is legal and profitable, but what is ecologically best as well. By educating people like this, we have an opportunity to sway that compass, and hopefully, not only people in our time, but future generations will also be making better decisions. I would argue that we need to be man the explorer, not man the conqueror. We need to understand our environment before we can make any sort of decision on it. And that we need to discover the true value of the land. One of the community members on the other side mentioned the scientific breakthroughs that we may come upon in the future. It's well and good, and yes, I believe that we should be focusing on advancing science to make our environment more healthy. But I also believe that the species that live in the gorge and the values that they may have for us are still unknown, and we should be doing more studying on species within the gorge before we endanger them as well. Cures to diseases and scientific breakthroughs may be delayed or never discovered because we were unable to glean the knowledge from these species that lived there before we destroyed them. So that is Group B for you.
Thank you.
Us next, right? Or
Thank you so much. I think now we have a presentation by one of our members of the community talking about some of the deeper significance of what this is going to get into.
Well, weed is legal, No judgment here.
Which button is it?
Well, I pushed on.
Oh.
All right. So thank you all for your today. While we get this figured out, I would just like to make a few statements regarding things that advocates of the Tesoro Savage Oil Company have stated from the community. First off, we had one of the members of the community speak about how this will help their family because they've been laid off, they need a job, and because they failed to save, they were unable to pay their house payment. At that point, we must also look at what will happen to their family if we fail to save the environment for future generations. It was also stated that this is just the way that it's going to be. We might as well do it better, and try to do it as best as we can. But it's that type of mindset is why we continue to burn fossil fuels and why we continue to pollute our environment. Is because companies like Tesoro Savage make a profit off of it. And as long as they continue to make a profit off of fossil fuels, it will always be an issue for us. So we are here to present a more than anthropocentric point of view, which means that in all of our discussions today, it's been about us, about the human species. And what we're here to talk about today is that it's about more than us. So we're going to talk a little bit about our platform. With our platform, we have an 8-point platform. The first point is that human and non-human life has inherent value that remains independent of human use value. Richness and diversity of life contribute to the realization of these values. This diversity is also valuable into itself. Humans have no right to reduce the richness and diversity except to satisfy vital needs. Present human interference with the non-human world is excessive and expanding. The flourishing of human life is compatible with a decrease in human population. The flourishing of non-human life is dependent on such a decrease. Policies must be changed to affect economic, technological, and ideological structures. The ideological change will focus on appreciating life quality rather than constantly increasing standards of living. Those who subscribe to the foregoing points have an obligation to participate in the attempt to implement the necessary changes. What does this mean for the Tesoro Savage Oil Terminal? Not today, not tomorrow, not in Port Vancouver. Human and non-human life has inherent value that remains independent of human use value. The Port of Vancouver is home to a variety of wildlife and plant species. The Port of Vancouver, the Columbia River, and the wildlife that reside in and around them are valuable outside of their capacity for human use. Richness and diversity of life contribute to the realization of these values. This diversity is also valuable into itself. Biodiversity boosts ecosystems where each species, no matter how small, all have an important role to play. Greater species diversity ensures natural sustainability for all life forms, including our own. Healthy ecosystems can better withstand and recover from a variety of disasters. The Tesoro Savage Oil Terminal proposed at the Port of Vancouver puts this diversity at risk by increasing the chances of derailments, oil spills, fires, and explosions that could reduce the richness and diversity of life in the Port of Vancouver and along the Columbia River. Humans have no right to reduce this richness and diversity except to satisfy vital needs. Humans need oxygen, food, water, shelter, and sleep to satisfy their vital needs. Placing an oil terminal in the Port of Vancouver will not satisfy vital needs. Therefore, the placement of an oil terminal by the Tesoro Savage Oil Company in the Port of Vancouver will only risk reducing the richness and diversity of non-human and human life without satisfying vital needs.
So then the fourth point of the platform is that present human interference with the non-human world is excessive and expanding. The oil terminal represents a continued and excessive expansion. It's expected to extract over 300,000 barrels a day, requiring up to 4 trains daily. Daily rail and river traffic is harmful to humans, fish, and other wildlife without accidents. And then there's a whole host of accidents that can happen and are factored into the costs of building the terminal, including a derailment, fire, oil spills, explosion, port evacuation, and loss of life. Train derailments are expected once every 2 years, and spills every 12. If you're expecting this terminal to last 30 to 40 years, that is not an insignificant cost, both to humans and non-humans alike. The flourishing of human life is compatible with a decrease in human population, and the flourishing of a non-human life is dependent on such a decrease. I'm sure you've all seen this human population growth chart, but I think it bears repeating. Human population has spiked tremendously in the last several years on almost an unprecedented